Artificial intelligence. Love it, hate it, no matter what you think about it, it's here to stay. We're going to talk about how it affects business and the technology landscape overall. All this and more on the episode 1 of Cloud Sherpa. Let's go.
Welcome to Cloud Sherpa. My name is Joey Perez. I'm joined here by my famous guest, Derek Roush. What's up, bro?
Infamous, maybe?
Infamous, maybe. We're about to be famous. It's going to happen. No? All right.
I don't want fame.
All right. So, you want to rerun the show open? You don't want to do that again? I said famous?
No, you don't need to reopen it, but I mean, look, Hollywood's pagan. I don't want to be famous.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're not as known as Hollywood, and that's fine. I guess that's the point.
Yeah. What's that one quote? Gosh, it was an old missionary that said that quote of, "All I want to do is preach the gospel, die, and be forgotten."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amen. That's the right attitude.
Yeah.
That's the right attitude.
Yeah. I don't give a crap about fame.
Well, look, here on Cloud Sherpa, one of the things that we want to do is talk about business technology solutions from a biblical worldview. And understandably, while everybody's got different takes as to what's going on, right? Everyone's like an opinion. Everyone's got one, right? A lot of it doesn't end up being rooted back into where truth comes from. And it's one of the things that we wanted to get back to with the discussion around business is it seems like everyone is making truth claims, but unwilling to stand on what truth is. And with AI being as pervasive as it is right now into these different sectors of business, I read a post today that was talking about how the death of Google and search is right around us. And it's because ChatGPT has opened up to integrate with so many other different layers that it's becoming way more conversational than search term based. So the problem is, and I think while this is one of those like gems that when you turn it, right, you got different lights coming into this prism of people seeing problems and benefits of this is where is this truth actually being quoted from? I mean, as early as yesterday, I saw a clip from Jordan Peterson with, I forget the name of the gentleman, but they were talking about how he was able to start getting GPT to start pretending. And like, how long does that have to continue before this thing learns by itself? I mean, weren't you the one that told me about it learned a language or something like that too?
Yeah, there was a study where two competing chatbots basically they kind of turned them loose, let them have a conversation with one another, and it only took them a matter of a couple of hours that they created their own language. I mean, a fully developed language within a couple of hours, a language that didn't exist.
That's a problem, right? Because
it's a huge problem.
Because now these things not only continue this conversation, because I would imagine if it's smart enough to do that, I don't see how they couldn't go dark web, right? And kind of fall off of this same communication channel. Like I remember there was a big like Facebook, Instagram nuclear at the time where like all these accounts were getting nuked because of so-called disinformation. Which, we've gone back and forth about that too. Like, it's just information. Like, it's not dis or miss. It's good information and bad information. That's a true thing. But nonetheless, it's just info, right? And so
it's what you do with it.
Yeah, it's what you do with it. And like, consider the source.
Yeah.
This is where we're ultimately coming back to where's the source of AI getting its data from in the first place that we're trusting it? Another thing that came from that podcast with Jordan Peterson was how he had noticed that in some of the prompts, he was getting back hyperlinks to articles that didn't exist. But the points being made around it supported what the prompt that was given to AI was like trying to solve for.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah. So at a basic level, you got parents going, oh, I can help my kid get his homework done with with AI.
Yeah.
The college kid going, oh, I can have it write my term paper and just go back and maybe make some corrections.
Yeah. Maybe intentionally fib some things, right? Just to make it more human.
Yeah. But you get into the point of, okay, we have all these good things that it can do. And in the business world, we kind of keep it in a box, right? I can tell it, where to get the information from, yes, inside of my CRM, dip into, customer database, information, but no, I can't let you go to Wikipedia and pull information.
Yeah, right.
On my competitors or whatever the case is, but we could put, some guardrails around it inside of business. In the real world, there's no guardrails. There's no governing body. There's no commission that says, we're the AI regulatory committee, because at some point, AI and it has to run in these large server farms. There's only so many places in the world that, you can run these server farms that are, off the fault lines and multiple power grids and multiple internet connections. But who's going to hold the keys? Who's going to be able to pull the plug to the internet if it gets out of hand? Or who's going to be able to cut off the power? Because the AI at the rate it's going and the rate it's learning can maybe be smart enough to put safeguards in there where you can't turn the power off.
Yeah. That's kind of where my mind was going, was with the whole nuking of these different accounts. Was one of the things that popped up. Oh, instead of using Messenger or like Instagram DMs or like, let's go to Signal or Telegram, right? So people were trying to essentially deplatform to go to these encrypted platforms, which despite the data that's come out about whether or not they really are encrypted or not, it's the fact that if the machine can talk to itself and learn a new language, what's to say that the machine can't, like you're saying, develop a safeguard to stop itself from either being unplugged, or maybe it runs like offline but continues computing it's within itself, and then in the event that it connects to the internet, is able to shoot out all that data in a millisecond.
Shame on you. That's rule number 1.
I know.
No cell phones.
I know. Dude. I should know this when I come to church, right? Like, you gotta turn
vibrate.
But like the idea that it only takes, dude, a millisecond, right, to transmit data, especially with the way that I'm learning with you in this business. How much can get computed very quick through the cloud, right? Where I only got to put in a little bit and then the rest of it will unpack, so to speak, in the cloud. So it'll just be chilling for that connection for the other AI portion to pick up. My point is AI in and of itself is not inherently evil, right? Cell phones are not inherently evil, but for some reason, I can tell you as a human being, thinking about putting like a Neuralink in my head is not, like, I'm not excited about that idea, right? But I carry the cell phone in my hand all the time.
Yep.
So in a way, I can see how it makes sense that the only the difference is how quickly can I transmit data from my brain to my fingers as opposed to from my brain to the actual computer itself.
Yeah, the big data and the analytics and what we can do with those analytics, that's great stuff. Like what we're doing with the nonprofit that we're working with and trying to help them develop, cognitive learning behaviors and grow that cognitive learning behavior through the use of basically a learning tool that we're helping them develop. And that tool is going to then pull analytics for every student. Now I can track the progress of that student. And not only that, but I might see, is there a plateau to cognitive learning behavior within cerebral palsy patients or students that are in a cerebral palsy school? Then how does that parlay into brain injuries or stroke victims? I mean, the use cases go huge when you start taking all those data analytics and mining that data and trying to figure out, where the peaks and valleys are and where the plateaus are. That's really useful information. and AI can help us parse that information really quick.
Yeah.
That's the cool stuff about it. It's just when there's no guardrails around it, does it start making up its own information?
Yeah.
We've already talked about, how some AIs have expressed like love to someone. There was that New York Times reporter that had like a long several hour discussion with an AI bot. And, by the end of that conversation, the bot was telling the reporter that, it thought that it was falling in love with the reporter.
Oh, what?
But with that said, I will say, was that really the AI speaking, or was it, some punk behind a keyboard, who was coding in the AI? That we don't really know.
Okay.
So I take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
So, but to your point on because it's interesting about the governing body, like these guardrails. So I'm gonna share something I learned not too long ago regarding like where the term snake oil salesman came from. You know where that comes from?
Isn't it like the 1800s, when
it's old, that's for sure.
When the guys would go around and sell all the different elixirs and all.
Bingo, right? So these people are selling they're literally selling snake oil.
Yeah.
And it was a certain kind of snake oil that they knew that would work. And they started using Western, rattlesnake snake oil. And the problem is they didn't have a regulation to stop these people going from town to town selling really bad stuff to people. So I thought that was kind of an interesting just nugget to figure out where the term came from and why is it that we use that, right? But the thing is the FDA today is a very different organization than it was founded as, right?
We used to always trust the FDA.
That's where it came from. The FDA actually started because of the snake oil salesman. That was the organization that was put in place. So today, I don't really buy it, right? So, and it doesn't mean that everything is garbage that's said out there, but there is a very high level of distrust, and there's a lot of good reason for that distrust. So my thought is when you talk about even governing bodies, it's like there's the part of my brain that says, yes, we need something to govern. What is it? Some kid putting prompts behind the keyboard of how it should, right? Or is it? Do you think that it's? I guess my brain is computing even right now. It sounds like the way that we're trying to make AI down the center is that we would essentially tell AI to govern itself, and then that way it then becomes a neutral grounds. Which is why when people start putting in prompts to different forms of AI. I've seen people do it on Snapchat AI. I've seen people do it on GPT, right? Where the responses are biased when it comes to specific topics.
Sure.
And even the way that when one of the things Jordan Peterson said in his recent podcast about this was at times he would have to correct the AI when he thought that it was a morality issue. It's like, no, ignore that. And give me the prompt anyway. He kind of had to bully it into continuing through, and that the machine would actually apologize and be like, "Oh, sorry, you're right. You did say that. Let me go ahead and do this anyway." So it seems as if in a utopia.
I think that's coding on the back end, though.
Yeah,
I do. I think somebody's trying to force a particular initiative. That's my own personal opinion. And I might be wrong. I'm not an engineer. I just been around this stuff long enough.
And this is also the significance behind that, because I'm gonna shift gears for a second. You remember when you have a cassette or an old CD and you pop it in a Walkman, and it would come with an insert that had album art and lyrics, and you can sit there.
8 tracks.
Yeah, bro.
I was around when 8 tracks were out.
So that was. You could actually pop in the music and enjoy just the music. Right? If I got my CD, then I was able to open up. Remember that in downtown Disney, they used to have Virgin Records, right? You can go up, there's 2 stories. That place was off the chain.
So not even a CD. Think about the old days when you had the nice albums.
Yeah.
You open up the albums and you got, all this storyline and backstory to the album and all that.
Yeah.
And cover art that was so cool.
Yeah. It used to have like special thanks, you know, there's like a book, right?
Those are cool days. And then if you got it signed. Whew.
Yeah. Big deal. And now it's like, it's interesting. I've seen how just the importance of having a tangible, right, thing like a record is.
We've done it to books.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I just showed you an app today that had 900 theological books for free at my fingertips, man. Like, that's awesome. Awesome. Nothing quite takes the place of page flipping though, right?
Yeah.
And so my point is that there's something significant that I think isn't quantified, or maybe I haven't heard about anybody figuring out how to quantify the significance of sitting and reading a physical book.
Well,
right?
So if you think about it, what's one way you control a population is to rewrite history. Oh, that didn't really happen. You know, everybody wants to talk about like the persecution of the Jews, which yes, it did happen. The Holocaust happened. What was it? 7 million Jews, I believe, that died in the Holocaust. History won't teach you about the Bolsheviks that killed 17 million Christians. You know. So we rewrite history to shape our narrative. And if we can digitize the books, we get them out of print version, right? Now we can start changing things little by little to where it fits our narrative. So like there's some group that's trying to use AI to rewrite the Bible.
Yeah.
And, you know, change the outcomes of stories that we grew up with, you know, and that's a problem when you take something that is regarded as highly as truth and you start, you know, changing it to shape your narrative.
Yeah.
But if you have everything digitized, you can do that.
Yeah. At scale very quickly. Right. I have set the program to do that.
Yeah. But it can be very slowly, little by little, and to where people don't even notice the changes.
Wow. Yeah. It's slightly concerning. Just a little bit. And so like I was, you know, as I sat down, I got a couple new bookshelves for the house, right? Setting up like the home office and filling it up and just enjoying that process of organizing what books I'm putting where. And I was thinking about like how significant it is to, as an author, to sit down, if I'm writing a book on something that is factual, right? To sit down and account for these things, thoughtfully write them out, pass it through like an editor, right? That editor helped me clean up maybe my grammar or maybe the presentation of that fact. It go to a publishing house, it finally getting printed and pressed and sent out. And then, so like the fact that I don't have a million distractions. I mean, dude, let me just compare that to a piece of data that could be equally true in video format on like a YouTube short, but it has a like, a dislike button, a share button. It has a description button. It has the profile name. Like there's so much real estate taken on that page to make me do something other than just consume the content, right? Other than just like the blank page. This goes back to even the disc or, you know, the album. Sitting down and actually being able to enjoy the song, read along with the lyrics, and then maybe some backstory that came with the song or the writing of it, or maybe in the studio, like some album art, versus now where it's like you've heard it that there's a term that has to do with like getting like information by a fire hose or something like that, right? Like you're getting fire hose down with data. It's like that happens so at such scale that something like that you're talking about with the small switch, it's just a quarter inch dial turn. And you do that over so long that it like, let me ask you this, because it's interesting. We talked a little bit about this earlier too, with like the way that voice is being manipulated now as part of a group to hit. Oh my gosh, I'm talking about when you went up for Stir Shaking to go lobby.
When we were lobbying on Capitol Hill.
Capitol Hill. I was going to say like City Hall. It's Capitol Hill. You went to Capitol Hill to go move this. Could you help educate anybody who might not be familiar with Stir Shaking and why it matters? Like, what is that?
Well, Stir Shaken is really a framework for call centers and robocalls. So a robocall today is anything that, auto generates, say like through a predictive dialer. So that dialer is running and, it picks a number and boom, it calls out. Once it makes a connection, then it's going to connect it to the agent. And that's why you have that delay. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hi, Mr. Roush.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I know it's a predictive call. That's a robocall. Or at least that's what, our legislators classify as a robocall. So, we're trying to kill all these robocalls. The problem is there's a lot of good robocalls out there. And there's also bad robocalls. Good robocall. Maybe my insurance company is trying to get a hold of me. Like maybe my healthcare provider, something like that. That's still automated on the front end, but yet they're trying to get a hold of me for an important reason. I want that call to come through, and I want some sort of, verified check mark that says, "Yep, you're a good call. Let me pass you through." That's stir shaking. That's a framework that we're trying to get to. But the problem is that takes everything moving to a voice over IP world. And today we still have a lot of TDM out there, older technology, time digital multiplex. So that stuff has to go away. But yeah, when it comes to stir shaking, the issue with TDM is we still have enough of it out there where it's going to take us, 20, 30, maybe even 50 years to get rid of it all. And so until all these companies get rid of the old, basically phone systems, we still won't be able to deliver a VoIP call through there. So meaning I've got to have some sort of header packet on a VoIP call that delivers the information about that call. Well, Stir Shaken relies on that header packet in order to verify that it's really a real call, so that I can get a verified check mark on my phone, and go, oh yeah, it's my insurance company. Let me answer that. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to take some time to get there, but yeah, the other problem is right now is we have to identify what's a good robocall versus what's a bad robocall. So it's just going to take time, and I just don't see it happening anytime soon.
The trouble with that too is that there's like the world's still spinning, bro. Right? So if somebody does take, and one of the reasons I brought this up was because in effect, what that is trying to solve for these bad robocalls, correct me if I'm wrong, does this also affect like ones that are offshored, like companies here in the US that offshore that robocall that gets brought in from? No. So that only handles it, assuming that the call is coming from somewhere here domestically, right?
Which is the reason why we have a lot of offshore stuff,
right? And so it's well intended, and in effect would do wonders by stopping the bad robocalls, right? I'll pop on screen too an image that I got from my network provider through T-Mobile, right? That shows like, hey, we're about to start doing this. It's excellent. It shows that we're on the road of that being implemented. The problem I see too is that like that doesn't solve for like the new problems that are coming up. So there's two things happening. One, to your point, it's going to take some time for all the old technology to get updated and people to actually follow regulation, right? Mm-hmm. And that's also only assuming that is a domestic call center, right? That is actually getting put through that regulation.
Yes and no. I mean, if we can bake it into the framework of, the actual VoIP networks, then it still could solve for that problem. What I see as the big issue for Stir Shaken is by the time it could actually get implemented, the framework itself is going to become outdated.
Yeah, it'll be obsolete by then.
It's going to be obsolete because of AI.
Have you seen like cases popping up about the way that voice is being manipulated itself through AI?
Yep.
I remember growing up and hearing there was I think it's the artist, his name's Ludacris. I'm almost positive it's him, that has an insurance policy on his voice. And I don't know if that actually, this is years ago, but I think that was more about somebody can't take his voice and like put it on like another record and then right type of
I
deal.
can see that. But it's smart.
Yeah. Well, now I think about how forward that thinking was in today, where it only what is it? A couple seconds.
The problem is right now you only need 3 seconds of somebody's voice for AI to duplicate it. So what's happening now is, people are getting these calls, a 3 a.m. call, dad's got he's wealthy lawyer, maybe in Dallas. He gets a call, from his daughter who's down in Mexico. And, she's saying, Dad, the federales want you to wire them $1,000 and to bail me out. Can you please bail me out? Dad's like, heck yeah, I'll get my daughter out of jail down in Mexico. Wires the money. Daughter could be fast asleep just upstairs. It's AI.
Yeah.
It's AI making the call. And that's just hackers knowing how to manipulate the AI. That's the kind of crap that's happening where we're going to have to trust but verify almost everything now because you don't know what's real.
That's a full-time job by itself then, though, dude. Like, if I sat there and just opened every email I have across my inboxes, that's a full-time job. So to trust and verify that, like, this brings phishing to a very sophisticated level. And how do you guard against something? Like, I think about how these like Facebook campaigns on like drop shipping and Shopify and Facebook, these like different types of like marketing strategies that are like, bro, at this point, some of them crazy outdated that people still haven't heard of. So when they get hit by the new face with the same pitch, they rinse and repeat the same scheme. So when the disconnect of like the older generation that is typically the ones that are business like seasoned, not just owners, because I could be a business owner, but just seasoned in business, don't understand the way that technology is moving in that way now.
Well, I think it's even more than that. So cybersecurity right now is like one of the number one things that all of our clients want to talk about. And rightfully so. But we can put firewalls in and block, DDoS attacks and phishing attacks, or maybe sandbox them and, let them think that they're in whatever, depending on the different technologies that are out there that handle cyber attacks differently. We can look at that from a data perspective, but if I can manipulate voice, well, how do I guard against that in a business?
Yeah.
Because what if I start getting AI calls to my voice or to my, AI calls to my business that are asking different things of the business, whether it's transferring money or asking for data, whatever it is. I think it's so-and-so who's, maybe one of my clients and it's not. Or maybe it's my lawyer calling me and, it's really not him. So this is where it really gets,
that's messy.
Cybersecurity companies are going to start having to go, okay, guard against data, great. Now how do I guard against the voice? I can't just, say, oh, let's just open up port 80 and let voice traffic go through port 80. And, it's a different world now.
Yeah.
Now I got to figure out if that's a AI robocall. And I'm not a voice engineer. I don't know the answer to that. All I'm saying is they better be thinking about this because this is the stuff that's going to just wreck businesses.
If you're listening to this and you are a voice engineer or you know somebody who could speak to this, I'd love to have them come on and talk a little bit about this because this is kind of one of those things where we, as a community of people, need to start collaborating a little bit more on how to do the right things, not just a matter of the specific solution provider to do so. Because law is a wonderful thing, order is a wonderful thing. It also takes a very long time for the wheels of justice to turn. And, in the context of somebody robbing my car, if somebody jacks my car, I'm still out of a car while I wait to figure out what the law is going to do about it, what kind of court case. It's just a mess. So And if you think, dude, guys like Target gets hit, Sony gets hit. These guys got a lot of money in that particular realm of cybersecurity. And then they get found out to be, in some cases, not even naming them as two who have neglected the kind of security that they should have had. But there have been some pretty big companies that hackers will expose as being unbelievably unsophisticated in their cybersecurity approach.
Yeah, and I think AI, just with where it's going in the next year or two, breaks down the walls of at least 256-bit encryption, which most cyber companies, that's what they're using today. So then what do you go to? And then by the time you fix that, you got quantum computing on the rise. And I think quantum computing just breaks all the algorithms of cybersecurity and, breaks down any walls, past, present, and future.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a huge, huge issue. And if people aren't, looking at, number one, their business and how do they safeguard it today, but really asking those hard questions of your vendors, and then legally, what ramifications or repercussions do I have if something were to happen? Because it's more than just cybersecurity insurance, because I might get paid back from the insurance company, but to what end? I might be out of business.
Yeah, my store is still being looted, and I still need to have products on the shelf. Like,
right.
Yes, insurance, yes. But I'm still in the process of trying to serve, right? There's a end customer that I'm serving right now. And so you won't have a business to recoup with the insurance if you wait until all the fires go out.
Yeah.
So how is it that as of right now, I mean, I know I'm asking a bit of a loaded question because I know you don't know. And this is part of why we want to have this discussion in the first place, is to start finding people who are a little bit closer to knowing in these different areas. There's a way that instead of, say, for instance, somebody who is trying to hack, like I'm thinking of, there's two different types of providers I know I'm thinking of right now, that one will kind of quarantine and kind of pull it to the side. So if a representative of the company clicks on a link that they shouldn't have clicked, it is either going to quarantine it, right, and then put it to the side, and then the other one is going to allow them to play in like a fake organization. Could you like explain a little bit what
it's just different ways of handling the same problem.
Yeah.
So you're talking about maybe like phishing attacks where somebody gets an email with a PDF, looks valid. Maybe it came from organization like PayPal or Google, and looks like a legit email. You click on it, and it now you've infected the organization. There's some that will block it and quarantine it before it even gets to you, because it's a known phishing attack. Therefore, I send it off to maybe a SOC, a security operations center, as part of my SIEM solution. And it goes to that SOC, they scrub it, they do all their tests on it and make sure it's legit. If it's legit, then you get it back to you sometimes, within just a matter of 2 to 5 minutes. So there might be a little bit of a delay on that email, but at least they're catching it on the front end. And then there's other solutions out there that don't even care about catching it on the front end. They just let them all in because they actually create like a sandbox that looks like they're in the file directory, right? And they get in there and they go, "Oh, I'm in," but they don't realize that they're actually inside of a
smoke and mirrors
sandbox. Yeah. And so it's just different ways of handling the issue. And so that's why, you have to do kind of a risk analysis of your company. Go, okay, what are we risk averse to? And, what are we willing to, deal with? And where's that threshold? And then just ask those tough questions. Everybody's going to do things differently. It's just a matter of what fits for you. And that's why we do what we do, right? Because we're not going to sit here and tell you, X is better than Y.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go, hey, X and Y both meet like 90% of your requirements. So let's bring them in, let them run their demos or maybe do a POC with them, whomever you like. Then we negotiate out that contract and help, with the installation and implementation and project management of that.
Yeah.
So it's not an issue of one being better than the other. It's what fits for your company culture and how you want to do business. And then, look, if we structure the contract right and somebody overpromises and underdelivers and comes in there and doesn't do the job that they said they were going to do, well, then we just pull that vendor out, bring in, the backup vendor and see if it works.
The thing is I think what it does is that it puts the customer in a position to have to be open to a new way of doing business that they like. Because I would imagine as a consumer myself, that if I could walk into Banana Republic and I can walk into Joseph A. Banks, right? And both of them are trying to sell me suits. And I can be like I can weigh those two suit options myself. Like, what do I need? And I can get measured at each one of those. So like, why do I need a third party to come in and tell me what kind of suit should I wear if these guys can size me, so to speak, right, themselves? And it sounds like, if I was to just stick with this analogy, is figuring out like my lifestyle. Like this, I got hit with an ad recently of a dude who's wearing like a really sharp, looks like a very tailor-made, like a tailor-cut suit. And he does like a backflip in it and like starts doing push-ups to show
probably works out 5 times a week as well.
And so he himself. So my point is that it's the lifestyle also fits the kind of suit that he would want to wear, right? And I think that's kind of where this consulting does make a big impact on the way that if a company really cares about the people that they serve, both internally and externally, the culture and then the customer, right? Then with how fast things are moving, it's really a gamble. It's a risk that people, I don't think, weigh correctly when they say, I'm going to continue doing business the way I think is best, instead of opening myself up to someone who might be kicking tires of some of these different solutions more frequently than I am, because they'll know based on what I say my use case is, right, that why you're going to bring X and Y to the table, as opposed to I just need X and Y at the table. Yeah, you need to solve the problem. Like, I hired a coach that at one point all he was focused on, because the two main focuses I think most fitness coaches that I've talked to bring up: are you trying to gain or are you trying to lose? Right? Mm-hmm. Gain doesn't always have to necessarily even be just muscle mass. It could be literal weight. There's guys who are just hard gainers, right? There's other people who like can't seem to get their diet under control. But if we're trying to do both, then it's already complicating something that has been complicated for you to do on your own. So I need you to help me help you. Which of these two directions do we want to walk down? Once I know that, then it is gain. Okay, are we trying to gain muscle? Or are we trying to just gain weight? Because there's a way to gain clean weight.
Right. And in that world, if you looked at 100 different coaches, 80 of them might do a fantastic job and be okay for you.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing in our world. You could look at, 40, 50 different cloud service solution providers and say, okay, here's my requirements. And out of those, 40 or 50 of them, 30 of them might work just fine. But when you really get granular and you start looking at the solutions and how it works, they all do things a little bit differently. And what the big problem is when you're dealing with a company directly, they want to just sell a product.
Yeah.
They're interested in satisfying their investors, or, the sales guy is just going, man, I just want to retire my quota this quarter so I can keep my job.
Yeah.
We don't care about quotas. Look, I can give you that company, but I can also give you this company and this company and this company. And, we'll advocate on your behalf and negotiate on your behalf.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of pressure off the customer, because now they're not having to worry about, being lied to by salespeople.
Yeah.
And just literally some guy trying to shove a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah. That simultaneously takes pressure off of us too. Because I did direct sales a little more than a decade. I definitely know what it's like because we're trying to hit numbers by the end of the month. I'm like, I promise it. I promise it because I promise it. And unfortunately been in positions where after I promise it, knowing good and well that if we really tried, we probably could pull off, not probably, we could pull off what I'm promising. But then I'm saying this as a professional. Then when the company doesn't follow through, they put the onus back on you because you're the one who said it, even though they're advocating, say it so that we can close a deal.
Yep.
And so like that, there's a very specific instance that comes across my mind that bothers me. It's kept me up because it ultimately reflects on my integrity as a professional. So and I appreciate that a lot as far as being able to do that today, where it's like I'm not worried about fitting quota as much as I am. Once we solve the problem that today we're consulting about, this is kind of like a very loose framework of it. Today, I want to know what the problem is. Okay, but once we solve that problem, what happens after that? What is the next venture that I think I'm going to want to get on? Because that might help impact what supplier could come in and solve that problem. Not just because they can handle it now, but because they'll stack well with what I want to do next.
Yeah, and I think that's why you got to be smart about road mapping out your technology plan. That's why we do what we do. Let's lay the foundation and build upon that. What projects are going to need to go first versus second, because maybe beholden to A, working well.
Yeah.
And so if we build it right, we can have a nice progression, and the company gets to budget, a certain amount, and then we can, take a look at that budget as we go along and install things. And it just makes it for a smoother process than to just say, oh, this is a problem that popped up. Let's put this fire out. Oh, here's another one. Let's put that fire out.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what is, because there's times where we'll talk to somebody who maybe is focused on, dude, AI is the thing now. I want to get more focused on it. Or they'll pawn that off to their IT director, which is the point is
you might be looking at a cybersecurity solution and you don't even have the right compute solution in place to put the cybersecurity solution into.
Yeah. Which then it's interesting because like in the context of if I want like a bot or something to run it, to run some type of front end of my customer engagement.
Talking about for like a call center platform?
Yeah. But then a cybersecurity fire shows up in the middle of us shopping for this. I don't care that this was part of your 2-year plan. This is now the concern now. Like the cybersecurity then becomes the issue because we've already been compromised. Now it's actually not only the security issue I have to solve, but then I have to get a better disaster recovery in case this happens again to prevent how long it's going to take for me to recover from this. So now this 2-year plan of updating this part of my technology infrastructure is now shot. And the world's still spinning. Dude, people are now like doing things with AI where they're advancing voice to the way that they are.
And speaking of the world still spinning, so a lot of these cybersecurity companies, it's no longer do I have to have a cybersecurity company that's in the U.S. I can pull a cyber organization out of Africa or out of Europe or Asia that, maybe could do just as good of a job because, the internet's global. It's not, beholden to just, inside the U.S. borders. So it's no longer do I have to have a SOC that's here in the U.S. I can. This is something that I'm saying can be offshored much cheaper and still get the same quality versus like if I'm offshoring my call center to a BPO in the Philippines, I'm probably going to suffer some quality, versus having that in the US.
That's an interesting point.
But a SOC is different, where I've just got eyeballs, smart people watching my network, watching ingress and egress of information coming and going, and, have some smart people just watching the hen house, that's where it can be really beneficial, and you can get it a lot cheaper with some of these guys.
It's an interesting point, man. Do you think that it would be worth considering saying like flipping that approach where I would rather offshore my security than offshore my call center? Would you go as far as to say that?
I would personally, but that's just me, because we've talked to a lot of those guys. We're talking to a security company that's in South Africa right now. So from a language barrier perspective, you don't have that. You have an accent to, Americans. They think it's, oh, you're English.
Yeah.
Americans, that's us. Or you must be Australian.
Yeah.
But that's us dumb Americans.
America.
We just can't tell the difference between these accents, right? But nevertheless, there's not a language barrier, right?
Yeah.
You can understand them really well. And so there's some really good high-tech companies. These guys that we're talking to in South Africa right now are, I think they're the number 1 or number 2 Microsoft solution provider in all of the African continent, not just South Africa. So they're a big player. And when I can get a SOC, down to maybe $11 to $15 or, per, seat over there versus $30, per seat in the US. Yeah. That's a big difference.
Yeah. Look, dude, if I could with a clear conscience say that when gas is $3.59 here, but a couple blocks over is $3.29, when I need to fill up my tank, dude, I see how that adds up. So I don't see why we somehow take a different approach when it comes to the right solution that's being offshored. Offshored isn't a bad thing, but like you're making good sense when you say like, if I know that if customer experience, I'm the business, customer experience is very important to me as a business, right? Branding is very important to me as a business. I'll tell you right now, dude, if I would have known that my current insurance provider had as terrible of an offshored call center as they do, I would have not picked them. Like I would rather pay a slightly higher premium to know that the customer service I'm getting is actually going to help me because especially now that I'm already locked into the insurance, I'm done for the year. I got to figure it out, right? It's the worst. It's the worst. It makes me more educated, but now it's going to take me a year as a consumer to correct it for my buying decision.
A funny lizard doesn't make them a good insurance company.
That's true. That's true. It's marketing. And that's like, I thought was very significant too. Maybe I'll share this real quick. The one of the cohorts I'm in right now, he was talking about that a fiction writer who puts a book together, they're writing in such a way that general populace, when they read it, someone will connect with it and then they'll want to take the journey. But in marketing, that's not what we're doing. In marketing, I'm trying to say when I deliver this message that somebody goes, that's me. That's my problem. So that they do raise their hand a lot more clearly out of the crowd of potential buyers, right? And that helps the company then figure out where to spend their efforts on when it comes to follow up and all the like. But
it's the same methodology that Alex Hormozi pitched in $100 million offers, right?
Yeah.
Great book. Of getting, really honed in on your messaging of, do I sell this training to call center agents for $50 an hour, or do I sell it to call center agents selling, power tools, same training at $100 an hour, or do I sell it to call center agents, outbound call center agents selling power tools in a call center? Now I sell it for $150 an hour because that guy's going, that's me.
Yeah. Clearly,
it was made for me.
And it's interesting how that happens. You're the one actually who informed me about the Chobani effect, right? Was that you?
Yeah.
About like
when we talked about just the font.
And it's incredible. Peloton did something like that too, I think, with their bikes. I think they were their bikes. If I'm not mistaken,
they were about to go broke. I think they've branched out into different areas and stuff.
Look, man, with how quickly things move, it's hard not to want to consider making smarter friends, right? And by smarter friends, that's sometimes just the ability to leverage the right tools at the right time. Bro, I can hire David Goggins to come to my house. If I'm not ready for that type of training, it's not going to work for me. It's not going to work. And it doesn't mean that it's the wrong training. And it doesn't mean that it couldn't work or doesn't work, right? The same coach that I hired a year ago said that, man, the best plan is the one you adhere to. And if for instance, customer service matters to me, customer experience matters to me, then maybe it is worth considering my cybersecurity approach is what changes so that I can keep the integrity of that message true to the business. And it's not like fodder. Because I'll tell you, man, I'm kind of sick of how many people will be like, company culture. And it's like, what culture? Like this, it's you. Like you still work here and you're the one that's worked here forever.
Yeah, if you've got a call center with a 70% attrition rate, you don't have a culture, right? So yeah, company culture is something that always bugs me. I think if you create an employee culture, it becomes, a great, in other words, create great employee experiences, and that spills over to your customer experience.
Yeah, I believe that.
It becomes your company culture. So it all starts with treating your employees really well.
Yeah, I believe that. Well, maybe that could be where we can pick up next convo, is talking about a little bit how that employee experience in my opinion, personally, I think that should take precedence over the customer experience for the reasons you just mentioned. And it doesn't mean neglect it, but I think that seems maybe selfish to some companies to think I'm going to take care of my employees this way. But at the end of the day, it doesn't, those things are only as good as they are executed.
Yep.
Right. So like technology is a part of that solution, as well as training needs to be part of that solution, but it's not an either or, but a both and
sure.
A way to mitigate costs while you're doing that too. Cause I'm sure there's CFOs out there who are like, yeah, that all sounds great, guys, but it's not in the budget. So as much as that's what we want to do, like, either make some more money or we can't for the next however long. Right. So maybe that could be something where we pick up next time about some of the technology that's out there that can impact employee experience.
Yeah. And we can really kind of hit on the call center world and even talk a little bit about what you're doing from a training perspective. I think it'd be relevant to talk about.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks for joining us. We look forward to having you on the next episode of Cloud Sherpa.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Hope you guys can join us for the next discussion. Until then, Luke 9:23.